Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So I'll do my presentation on behalf of the Air Navigation Services of the Czech Republic. Because both topics are pretty complex, my today's presentation will focus mainly on the TOD implementation, because we have received presentation from Roberta yesterday on the implementation from the other ICAO regions. I would like to add a little bit from the Europe as well. I will focus on the Czech Republic implementation status as well. For the digital data distribution, I would like to share with you operational experience and challenges, and of course I will try to share the conclusions with you, so I'll pass the message I want to share with you. Focusing further on the TOD in Europe, I will talk about best practices, implementation status, close cooperation with ICAO, and although it is not fully linked to the TOD implementation, I would like to talk about the EATOC implementation experience in Europe. So now focusing on the best practice while implementing the TOD in Europe. In Europe, in a certain area, we are grouped under the umbrella of Eurocontrol. So Eurocontrol has established a TOD working group, which is the group of experts that are supposed to share their best practices, facilitate the TOD implementation, and identify the causes of difficulties. So this group is attended by the experts from the whole chain of the TOD data collection and production. So it includes surveyors, includes the AIM providers, includes airport operators, and of course regulators as well. This group is a good platform to share the best practices, and one of their outcomes I would like to mention here today is the TOD terrain and obstacle data manual. It is document sharing, putting together all the best practices, giving the guidance why you want to or you have to implement the TOD. The document is constantly improved and maintained by the group. So nowadays there is version available 2.1, which was released last autumn in 2015. The document is freely available and you can find it on the Eurocontrol webpage. The link is provided on the slide. So implementation status, I use here the screenshots of the Eurocontrol ATM Atlas Viewer, which is actually a graphical depiction of the implementation status in the ICAC area states. Again, this tool is freely available on the Eurocontrol website, so you can check the implementation state in the morning if you wake up and you want to see what's the status in Europe. Here on the first slide, you can see in green the states that are grouped in the ICAC area. On the next slide, you can see the implementation status on the Area 1. So those states depicted in pink color are the ones that have obstacle data published in the AIP Gen. Those with a blue shade, yeah, it's possible to see that. So those with the blue shade, those also publish obstacle data Area 1 in a form of a data set. So you see from the slide that the implementation status is probably not that good as it should be, because we have reached so far the implementation status of about 43%. The last slide was a map of Europe, shows the implementation status for obstacle Area 4. Those depicted in red have partially implemented Area 4 obstacles, though in violet have completely implemented. On this slide, on this picture, there are no states depicted that have no runways with Cat 2 and 3 approaches, so they don't have to implement Area 4. Cooperation with ICAO, as it was mentioned several times here yesterday by previous presenters, it is a necessary part of the success. So there has to be very close cooperation. In Europe, we do it through the Eurocontrol AIM swim team, where the ICAO representative is attending the meetings So Eurocontrol is providing the expertise, Eurocontrol is providing the guidance, and then the ICAO through the EANPG performs the monitoring. Again, the secretary of the TOD working group refers to the EANPG, so there is a very close link. The common effort of both organizations is to support states. So both try to provide framework to set up responsibilities, and they monitor the efficiencies. Here, as I mentioned at the beginning, I would like to make a short link to the EATOC, because you are fully aware, I'm sure, on our responsibilities on provision of this chart that became effective last November. And in Europe, we have been thinking about how to implement, so we have realized there is a close link to TOD data provision, so that's why I'm mentioning it here, and what are the activities under the umbrella of Eurocontrol in the European region. So it is an implementation challenge, that is definite. If you look around and see the implementation status in Europe, I can say it's 0. So we have investigated what is the reason, what is the cause of this status, and we have identified that there is an absence of any examples in ICAO SARTs and guidance material. So the states are left alone, and it also leads into potential of non-harmonized implementation. So what we have done, we have set up a group of volunteers that are trying to set up, establish the guidance material or the best practice. We have started with investigation of the user expectations and requirements, and we have contacted IATA. So now we are awaiting the IATA feedback, because they promised to communicate their view on the needs and expectations from the ATOC. Moving now to the implementation experience from the point of view of a navigation service of the Czech Republic. In the Czech Republic, we have a quite good regulatory framework, because next to the ICAO provisions, we also have adapted, or the state has adapted the aviation law, which defines the roles and responsibilities. And we have a national application of Annex 15 that defines the things similar we have seen in Tomáš's presentation from Poland yesterday for responsibilities and approval chain and data provision. Who are the players in our case? It is the state that is putting the procedures, defining responsibilities. It is the AIM provider that runs the database and published data. It is the Czech army that provides the majority of data. It has some benefits, it has also some shortcomings. I will share that with you in a minute. And also there are airport operators as suppliers of Area 2 and Area 4 data. What is the implementation status for the Czech Republic? Area 1 is completed, including the digital data set. Area 2, there is a problem. As I mentioned, that the data are delivered by the military colleagues. The data are not fully in line with the ICAO requirements, because they follow their NATO standards. So also the area of responsibility is defined slightly different from the ICAO provisions. Area 4, still work in progress. What are the challenges? Data completeness, again going back to the fact that the data are mainly delivered by the military colleagues, which is very much appreciated. But on the other hand, it has the shortcomings that they do not follow fully the ICAO. I can mention here, for example, the metadata that are not fully in line with the requirements. Maintenance of data, it's another issue, because this is a continuous effort to have an updated TOD data. So it is difficult. That's what we have realized through the operations. It's difficult, for example, to identify the objects. The objects are changing their names, they are changing their positions, locations, and they are changing their attributes. If you can imagine that Area 1 obstacle is located both in Area 1, or the obstacle above 100 meters height, is located in Area 1, delivered by the military colleagues, and Area 2, delivered by the airport operator. It is sometimes very difficult, and it requires a lot of human effort to identify that it is the same object and store it in the database only once. What is the way forward? Continuous collaboration. We have found out that's the only way. We have to continue our effort, and we have to continue with all the stakeholders I have mentioned. Of course, the role of the state as the moderator is very important in this case. This brings me to the second part of my presentation, which is the digital data distribution. So we have heard yesterday several times that there will be split between the data provision and data interpretation. So what is the must to be able to do that is first you must have the data. That is the biggest problem of nowadays. We are still trying to get data, to have it physically, and then to structure it properly. So it has to be in a form that everybody understands. Well, we call it here as an interoperability, but in fact it means that everybody understands the data and can interpret it in the correct way, because for us as AIM providers, it is one of the biggest risks that our data will be interpreted in the wrong way. Well, when you have quality assured data well structured, then you can start some productions of, for example, depiction of data in a graphical form. Here you see an example of 2D or 3D usage of the data. So what are the challenges I'd like to share with you today? First, technical issues. Legacy versus interoperability. On the ICAO slides, we have seen several times, and also on the Stefan slide, that this is the biggest task for today. Well, if you look into operations, everybody is saying, I'm interoperable because I have implemented this and that standard. In fact, if you look closer, you realize that from the legacy, for the legacy purposes or other purposes, the standards are implemented always slightly specific, if I can say it. So the interoperability is still a big challenge, and it needs a big effort. Integration of data. So we have to ensure that we are able to integrate, not only to provide a single data set, obstacle data set, airspace data set, but to integrate the data into bigger, complex data set. Security, nowadays a big issue, not only for the human beings, but also for the data. So it needs a special expertise, it needs a lot of effort to ensure security data. The second subject for the challenges is the institutional issues, roles and responsibilities. So we were used to define the roles and responsibilities for the raw data provision for our product provisions. Now we have to do that also for the data. We have seen some implementations from Rookie yesterday. It also has another side effect, which is authentication. I don't know how it was in your states, but in the Czech Republic, we have never ever checked someone's ID to be able to provide him AIP. But now with the data provision, how do you provide the credentials to your users, login and password, if you don't know who the users are? Do you do it through the open registration via the internet? How do you then balance the security and availability of the data? So it's a big issue. It's a big topic where we want to coordinate with the other states, with the other AIS and AIM providers. Last but not least, as always, money, the financial issue. Of course, ICAO has made a study years ago saying that AIM implementation doesn't change anything on the cost recovery mechanism for the data provision, so it will remain the same, but well, it's easy to set the price for the paper document and the postal services. For the electronic data distribution, what's the data production or the service production? What's the cost of it? Servers, everything is virtualized. So what part of the server? 1/10, 1/2? The distribution service. Majority of the services is distributed via secure network through the internet connection of the private leased lines. What is the cost of the bandwidth for the AIM data provision? Because we don't have dedicated lines for the AIM data provision. So what part of the cost can be put on the shoulders of the data users? So those are the operational questions, and we will be very happy to be able to have a view on of the others and have a harmonized implementation, preferably global. Role of the AIM staff. Not to forget that the AIM staff is the crucial key element of your success. Without qualified staff, you cannot achieve it. What are the challenges? The people have to gain new skills, new knowledge. They have to reach the solution, which is bring the right people into your team. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to change your stuff. It's not at all. Just the people have to get a chance to adapt to the new challenges. They have to have a chance to gain new skills and knowledge. So make them data modeling experts, system architects, GIS specialists, and other experts we need in AIM and SWIM today. This brings me to the conclusion. So what was the message I tried to pass to you today? Digital data distribution and TOD implementation are challenges, that's for sure. Just think about it. For the TOD, we have started in 2003. Well, and you have seen the implementation status. And I'm not talking about the digital data distribution. We still don't have a globally agreed exchange model, and we have started with the definition of those in very early days. Understanding, skills, knowledge, it's a must. Of course, resources, as in any other project, money, people, and time, that's nothing new. Continuous effort, that's important not to forget, especially for the areas like terrain and obstacle data implementation, where you have to put a lot of effort into continuous update of data. What is good? The support is available. So I hope we will reach the objectives soon. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention.